I know how the NFL typically works. If one team is better than everybody and that team's quarterback is having even just a pretty good year, that guy is at the very least in the running,
yes,
if not the leading candidate for MVP.
Consideration.
This year, the Cowboys are clearly one of the two best teams in football. I think they're the best team in football. They are the only team to have locked up the 1 seed in either conference. Patriots haven't done that yet. Dak Prescott is top 5 in the NFL in quarterback rating, in yards per attempt, in completion percentage, in touchdown interception ratio. And CeCe, he's not, you can't even make a bet on him to win the MVP. There's 9 guys with listed odds. How am I crazy? Why is Dak Prescott not the MVP of the league?
Well, it's hard to be the MVP of the league when you're not the most valuable player on the team.
Oh, man.
Okay.
Zeke?
I hate to, yes, I'm going to have to put a little something in your drink there.
Okay.
Because what Zeke is doing is on a record-breaking pace. And what he does, he eliminates 30 plays a game for Dak.
Yeah.
And when you can do that and allow the comfort level, people talk about, well, their offensive line. Well, just anybody's not going to rush for 1,500 yards behind that. His ability in the passing game, the screen game, it's allowed Witten, who is definitely in his last 1 or 2 years playing football, Dez, who hasn't had a great year, Cole Beasley, very limited as far as a slot receiver, and they haven't been able to throw the ball deep. So offensively, the thing that's been impressive about his overall composure with Dak, but the most impressive player to me has been Ezekiel Elliott.
All right, so hold on, because people bring this up, and I think it's an interesting point. That Zeke's 1,500 yards and the fact that Dak is unlikely to even throw for 4,000 this year. He would need about 600 in the final couple games. Dak's only thrown 4 picks. If Dak had made more mistakes and the Cowboys were losing in more games, he might have gaudier numbers. One of the reasons Zeke has 1,500 yards is because Dak has played so well in the first 3 quarters of games that they're just feeding Zeke late in games. One of the reasons Dak's numbers, his raw passing numbers, aren't higher is because they have so many leads because he's playing so well. And like the league history, in the last 10 years, 7 of the MVPs have come from 1 seeds. 8 of the MVPs have been quarterbacks. Like, so you think Zeke is the MVP of the Cowboys, but not the MVP of the league?
Well, I believe he's the one off that team that should be considered. You consider both of them, but the quarterbacks are always going to get included.
Right.
So I'll throw Dak in there. You're also going to have Matty Ice in Atlanta. You're going to also have Tom Brady, who people might say that, okay, he would have had bigger numbers, larger numbers, greater numbers if he had played the first 4 games of the season. So we can't play hypothetical. Well, if Dallas was behind, Zach would have thrown for 10 more touchdowns.
Fair.
But he also might have thrown 6 more interceptions.
It's totally fair. Here is a hypothetical that I do think is a fair one to use because it's not changing any of the facts on the ground. And that's this. What is hurting Dak is confirmation bias. Is the fact that going into the year, no one would have ever thought Dak Prescott could win the MVP. Therefore, at the end of the year, he has a higher hill to climb over than the other guys. Because it's not like the guys in front of Dak in the MVP discussion are guys or other unknowns. It's not as if Carson Wentz is one of these guys.
Right.
So if people are more comfortable with Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers.
I mean, that is an argument. And these guys have been fairly consistent over the last 4 or 5 years, that which would get them in the conversation. Dak we've seen some veteran, not necessarily rookies, but veteran players. Rich Gannon be an MVP with the Raiders under John Gruden. Randall Cunningham, the 98 season with the Vikings, 15-1, MVP.
Was he the most valuable player of that team? You were on that team. Was he the most valuable player, or was he just the quarterback? Like, because that's a problem, isn't it?
Well, this is the thing. We had 3 Pro Bowl offensive linemen. We had 2 Pro Bowl receivers. We had a Pro Bowl.
Randy Moss and who?
Another guy. And then we had a running back. Robert Smith was a Pro Bowl player. So we had a lot of talent.
Right.
We had more talent than Dallas.
Exactly. The Randall Cunningham point on a team you played for, the argument we're using against Dak, why didn't it get used against Randall? With Dak, I hear, oh, the offensive line's great. Oh, the running back's great. That's what I hear with Dak. With Randall, they didn't say, well, you've got one surefire Hall of Famer in Cris Carter. You've got one of the best young wide receivers we've ever seen that people didn't know what Moss was going to turn into, but he was already amazing. Like, why are we only using that against Dak Prescott?
Well, I think that Randall was far more impressive. When you're distributing the ball, 2 receivers had 1,000 yards. So it wasn't like he was, chucking and ducking it, just checking the ball.
all-time great. I mean,
Randy Moss was in his first year.
And turning into an all-time great. And you were already an all-time great.
What Randall did, I was there. I mean, it was very, very impressive. And we dominated teams more so than Dallas.
Yep.
I mean, we only had really 1 or 2 close games.
Listen, man, I think to this day, I think the 2 best football teams I've ever seen, neither one won the Super Bowl. I think the 07 Pats and the 98 Vikings are the 2 best football teams I've ever seen. And neither one, not to twist the knife a little bit.
No, it's all good. The 07 Pats team, I think, was better than the Vikings because of the defense. And then also the 07 team, it was a Belichick coach team. So it took a historic effort by the G-men to be able to bring them down.
Here's my